Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Tyler Dozot, and this is episode 6 of Football for Thoughts. It's a very special one because we not only have the XFL that we've been covering, but now we have the USFL. I've been hearing from a few viewers that they do like the shorter videos rather than the 30, 25-minute videos, so I'm going to do something a little different. I'm still going to talk about each of the XFL games and show highlights, but instead of showing highlights for most of the game, I'm just going to do one major highlight that I think was really good in the game and that should be shown off. And as far as the USFL goes, since we have been focusing more on the XFL, I'm kind of just going to go over the USFL scores instead of breaking down each game. Since USFL just started, the XFL is about to go in their playoffs. I feel like that's more important to be covering and more in depth, if that makes sense. But we're about to get into these XFL games. If you want to see your specific team or just any specific team in general, I will have the winning team's logo above my head so you can scroll through, see that, and tune in for just that one. Without further ado, let's get into Week 9 of the XFL. And we start off this Week 9 XFL weekend with the South Division champions, Houston Roughnecks. They are playing the Vegas Vipers for this game, who were actually just eliminated. So really, both these teams don't have anything to play for, but to just better their record and show they are the better team. Houston Roughnecks have yet to beat a team in the North, and the Vipers know that, and they come out swinging. It is 12-0, almost down to halftime with 3 minutes, 50 seconds left, but finally the Houston Roughnecks score going into half, 12-6. And this game was just riddled with turnovers, 3 in the first half alone, and that continues on into the second half. And midway through the third quarter, the Houston Roughnecks create another turnover with a Honey Badger-esque play, stripping the ball straight from Martavius Bryant's hands, and bringing it in for another 6 points. Great play by the Houston Roughnecks, and the spark kept going. They kept rolling these people and winning 28-21, finally getting their first win in the North, and the Roughnecks just bettering their record more and more. We then go to the San Antonio Brahmas, who are actually competing to play with Houston Roughnecks in the playoffs. They're competing with the Arlington Renegades, but this game they're playing against a team that's already eliminated. So they have nothing to lose when the Brahmas have everything to lose. And it's a pretty good game. This first half is really good. Orlando strikes first, getting points on the board. Then the Brahmas go ahead and strike, getting points on the board. But then a crazy thing happens with Orlando, and they do a fake punt. Mac Brown throws a missile down the field, gets caught, ends up in a first and goal situation, which they do score off of. But it was just a very surprising thing by Orlando, and they just came out swinging. But we go into half, 14-10. Orlando is up. Brahmas still easily can go and get this game. And the game does go back and forth, back and forth. The Brahmas end up taking the game 25-23, and they are still in the chance to get these playoffs. Really, it's between them losing or Arlington losing. But it was a great game to watch, and really Orlando is going to be a menace to mess with next year because they finally got all their things together. Congrats to the Brahmas for winning that game and still being in contention for the playoffs. But speaking of contention for the playoffs, we're going to jump straight into the Arlington Renegades versus the DC Defenders. So Renegades versus Defenders, there's a lot at stake for this game. If the Defenders win, they get home field advantage like the Houston Roughnecks got. If the Renegades win, they clinch their playoff spot. Very, very big game with a lot of implications on the line. And it was a great one. It was a really good game to watch. It was a chess match the entire first half. Even though DC ended the half 20-9, it was still a game that just could have been any which way. Very great game going on. We go into the second half, and really it's just staying a stalemate. Chess match back and forth. Each team knows the other team. The only score in the third quarter is the DC Defenders actually picking off Louis Perez for their touchdown of their own earlier in the third. But that does not stop Arlington because they go on a 17-6 run in that second half, bringing the game into overtime, which before last week, we have yet to even see overtime in the XFL, and now we're getting multiple games in multiple weeks going into overtime. But sadly, Arlington could not do it in overtime, not scoring a single 2-point conversion while DC got one of their own. DC winning the game 28-26, but it was a great comeback from the Arlington Renegades, showing that if they could hold it with the best team in the league, maybe they can go ahead and win this playoff spot and clinch that contention. But DC goes ahead and wins the game. They are now clinched with home field advantage, and the Renegades are still in the search for that playoff spot, and they just need to win out. So it's them and the Brahmas going back at it. this Week 9 has been amazing so far. Jumping into the last game of Week 9, we have the Seattle Sea Dragons versus the St. Louis Battlehawks. This game had a lot at stake, even more than the last one. But before we get into this game, I want to send my condolences to the team of the Sea Dragons, as well as the XFL and just the family of Chris Smith, everyone that knew him. He was a defensive end for the Seattle Sea Dragons, but died on Tuesday. Causes haven't been released, but just very sad. He was only 31. So I do send my condolences to his family, the team, everyone that did know him. But like I said, a lot at stake in this game. If St. Louis wins, they're in the playoffs. If Seattle loses, they're out the playoffs. Seattle needs to win this game to be in the playoffs, and that's what they did. Just like the DC game, it's really a back and forth chess match with the score being 14-9 at half with the Sea Dragons up. It's really anyone's game at half. These two teams are very even, and it's just who wants it more at this point. And you know who wants it more is Ja'Cour Pearson. This man leads the league in receptions, leads it in yards, and he's always doing some crazy plays, and it doesn't stop in this game. He goes on the opening drive of the Seattle Sea Dragons, takes a bad pass from DiNucci, does a spin move to get off a defender, and brings it 68 yards to the house, electrifying this Seattle Sea Dragons team in this crazy atmosphere of this St. Louis Dome, who just, it seems like, gets to everybody, does not faze the Seattle Sea Dragons, and they go on to just keep stomping on the Battlehawks' throat, only letting them score 3 points in the entire second half of the game. Seattle was showing they are the better team, and they want this more. Seattle Sea Dragons went ahead and won this game 30-12, just absolutely demolishing the Battlehawks, even with A.J. McCarron and all those weapons. And it really comes down to this Week 10 to see if they can make it in the playoffs or if the St. Louis Battlehawks can make it in. And I'm really excited to go and see this. This Week 9 was great, a lot of close games. The only real blowout game was the Seattle Sea Dragons game, and that was only in the second half. So XFL is doing great right now. I'm really enjoying watching it. But we have another league, and we're going to jump straight into that right now. So like I mentioned in the beginning, we now have 2 spring football leagues playing at the same time for the first time ever with the XFL and the USFL. And as far as viewership goes, it's very interesting because the XFL came in with 2.35 million views total of all their games. That is a total. And the USFL came with 3.15 million views. So basically the USFL just in week 1 has outviewed the XFL on their week 9. I don't know if that's because of, like the USFL guy said himself, they have Fox, they have the better premieres, they have NBC, or if it's because of just people want to view that more. But USFL got more views, and it's pretty crazy to me because I was way more interested in the XFL, a lot more interesting games. To me, the USFL was kind of boring, but it was the week 1 of the USFL. I mean, the XFL was super boring in their week 1. They kind of need to get the rust off. I mean, hey, the USFL came out week 1 swinging with more views. I wonder if they'll keep that up throughout these last few weeks of the XFL, but we'll see. So, like I did mention in the beginning, not going to get into a lot of depth, just going to go through the scores of the USFL, but I thought it'd be fun to put the top 10 plays of the USFL right behind me to watch while I talk about these scores. So with these top plays going on in the background, I hope you guys enjoy that little different aspect going on. But with the first game of the USFL weekend, which is also the highlight above me, we have the Philadelphia Stars versus the Memphis Showboats, who are making their comeback into the USFL. The Memphis Stars ended up winning that game 27-23, and it was a very close game, back and forth. I really didn't know who was going to win. And of course, I was cheering for the Memphis Showboats since they were new, but the Stars went ahead and pulled it out to get their first win of the season. We then go over to the New Jersey Generals versus the Birmingham Stallions. And I didn't watch much USFL last year, but from watching this one game, I realized why the Stallions won the South and why they won the entire conference, or the entire league, should I say, because they just stomped on the New Jersey Generals. It didn't seem like they were ready to play as much as the Stallions were. The Birmingham Stallions won 27-10, making their first win of the season and showing that they could probably run it back and get a repeat. We then go to the next game, and it's the people I said making it out of the North with the Michigan Panthers playing the Houston Gamblers. And this, to me, was one of the most boring and sloppy games I've seen in a while. But the Michigan Panthers pulled it out 29-13. Houston just didn't seem like they knew they were playing football this week. The Panthers didn't as well. Really, their defense kind of won them this game, making a lot of big plays later on. But then we moved to the last game of this opening weekend, with it being the Pittsburgh Maulers versus the New Orleans Breakers. And just like the last game, this one wasn't really that interesting. A lot of defense, low scoring game, kind of just sloppy until later on in the game when the New Orleans Breakers kind of showed they were a better team than the Maulers. But the final score being 22-15, it was a close game. It just was a lot of field goals, a lot of sloppiness happening over and over. My real thoughts on the USFL opening weekend is, as you can tell, I wasn't that big of a fan of it. Yeah, it was week one, so it was very sloppy. You can definitely tell, though, that they've had rules and systems in place because it just kind of started off with a bang. Didn't really explain it, just kind of going straight into the USFL. So, with that being said, though, I did find that very interesting. It is like a league that's been around for a while, and I am excited to continue to see the USFL, to continue to get attached to teams, get attached to players, like I am with the XFL. But as of right now, the XFL is definitely popping a lot more for me. But I mean, according to viewership, it's the USFL popping a lot more, and that's just in their first week. I can't imagine throughout their 10 weeks. But I mean, hey, it's going to come on to me. It's going to reach me more and more. I have developed a lot of likings to the XFL because of what they've done, the players, and everything like that. But I want to know your guys' thoughts. How are you guys feeling about the USFL in comparison to the XFL? And do you guys like this newer format that I'm doing? The montages have been shortened down to just one clip instead of every single highlight in the game, just to make my videos a little shorter. And then, of course, with the USFL, I will do that to them as well. But as of right now, since we're in the later innings of the XFL, I'm just going to focus more mainly on those and kind of just do the scores as well as show the little highlights that I am right now, right behind the screen. I think it's a really good thing, especially for you guys wanting shorter videos. And I want to put out the best possible content for y'all. So just let me know down in the comments, anything like that. But I am Tyler Dozat, and this is going to conclude episode 6 of Football for Thoughts. And until next time, I'll see y'all in the end zone.